Absolutely. See, Donald, we're currently, as I'm sure you know, in the middle of a very divisive debate here about making a race-based change to our Constitution and calling it the voice. Again, your father said of America in 2020, quote, "The left is attempting to divide Americans by race in the service of political power." From your perspective, how real is this and how damaging?
Oh, I think it's incredibly real. I mean, you just have to look at what they're doing every day. I mean, we're told, the way to have and ensure a strong military is to make sure we have, diversity in the trans movement in our military. I have no idea, Alan, what that has to do with winning wars, but we're told that. We're told the greatest threat to our military is climate change. I don't understand. I don't think that's accurate. I'd say it's China. But our enemies and our allies alike are watching. Our enemies are laughing their proverbial butts off, while our allies are scared that we won't be there or won't be capable of actually helping them when in need. It's going on every day. It's going on unchecked, and it's time to say enough is enough.
Enough is enough. He further said, and viewers, this is significant for us, Donald Trump, president, said, by viewing every issue through the lens of race, they want to impose a new segregation, and we must not allow this to happen. Now, Donald, you've run presidential campaigns and your father was the leader of the world's democracies, so you've been close to the highest seat of power. How the hell do we stop this stuff?
Listen, for us in America, it's about him winning in 2024. You need someone that can, dismantle those corrupted institutions. I think they need to be burned down to the ground. And I don't mean that in a physical sense, because the left will accuse me of, perpetrating violence because
Yes.
words are violence and
Yes.
everything is violence these days. But in the spiritual sense of having to start from scratch, you need people whose incentives are aligned, people who love their country, not people who have gotten rich by being bureaucrats, by peddling that nonsense. By perpetuating the never-ending and endless wars, so that they can get on a board of a military contractor, so that we can keep sending missiles abroad for no end. That's what we've seen. So we got to start from scratch. I think the only way to do that is to elect leaders that have the guts, and there's a better word for it, but I won't use it in your programming.
That's right. I agree. I mean, President Trump said, viewers, President Trump said, and this is so true of us today, he said the crusade against American history, so called Australian history, the crusade against American history is toxic propaganda. We've got all this invasion stuff in Australia. He said it's toxic propaganda, ideological poison that, if not removed, will dissolve the civic bonds which tie us together. It will destroy our country. Donald, on this front, therefore, are you a pessimist or an optimist?
Well, I'm an optimist because I have 5 children, and we have to fight for that. I want to make sure that they grow up in a country that we recognize in a world controlled by true democracy, not sort of honestly, the notion of Antifa is sort of ironic to me when I see these people protesting, because they seem to be acting like the actual fascists. And people who've been screaming democracy for the last 7 years seem to be awfully silent about the weaponization of our government and the proven antics that have come out in the last few weeks. But I'm an optimist because I believe we have no choice other than to win, though it is daunting and though some of the hurdles do seem insurmountable.
Yes, absolutely. Your dad said 3 years ago, and again, this is relevant to us here. President Trump said, whether it's the mob on the street, how much of that have we had, or the cancel culture, I know all about that, in the boardroom, the goal, President Trump said, is the same: to silence dissent, to scare you out of speaking the truth, and to bully Americans, call it Australians, into abandoning their values, their heritage, and their way of life. Donald, is that from what you read as you see Australia today? So your dad wanted, and I quote, a national commission to promote patriotic education. What a great idea.
Listen, I love it. I think these countries, again, that I feel have lost their way. And that's frankly, most of what I would have considered the free world prior to this. It's interesting with Australia. I know there's going to be people that hate the idea of me talking about it and visiting, but I also, the amount of messaging I get from Australia is probably, other than America, probably the highest. The amount of people that also feel the country has lost their way. the people who resonate with that message. Again, I do think we live in very divisive times. That's been very polarized. But the amount of sort of true patriots in your country that understand what's at stake and what's gone and what's been lost, and perhaps what's been lost for quite some time, Alan, but perhaps it took some of the totalitarian things that we've seen as a result of COVID and all the things that you mentioned to bring out and to have people wake up and realize just how far we've all fallen.